I heard that you followed up our duck dinner in December with an oyster roast.
Yes, I did.
And I missed it.
Okay. Well, no, we went out with Ben and Holly Dyer down to James Island because I had never been shellfishing, and they showed us how to cull oysters, and then we got a bunch of oysters and took them back and had a little roast.
Well, who wouldn't?
Just doing my job, ma'am. Ben, what are we looking for?
We're actually looking for, we're here to harvest some oysters, and we're looking for, what we want to see on the banks is, you're looking for the most vertical shell possible, and that's going to give you a good indication.
When you say vertical shell, you mean like stacked?
Okay. Yes, exactly, standing upright, and as you can see, they're vertical shell right now, standing upright in nice big clusters, and you want to look for shells that are, you know, maybe around 3 inches in height, things like that, and you can kind of see what the best oysters are. You can harvest 2 bushels per person per day, and you can only have up to 3 limits per boat.
Okay.
So if you have 3 people in your boat, you can get up to 6 bushels.
What about as far as tide goes? What's your consideration?
The best is a falling tide, so you can get out there early enough, and you have enough time for the tide before it comes back in, so you can harvest your oysters. So basically, now that we've picked our oyster bed that we want to look for, we're going to make our way to where we want to start harvesting the oysters.
Okay.
We want to be very careful when we're walking the oyster bed not to step on any live oysters
How do you tell?
to hurt the population. The live oysters are the vertical oysters standing up. As you can see, they're standing vertical, straight up, instead of these dead oysters that are either opened or they're laying down on the ground, and those are okay to step on. And you can see these are the vertical shell that we're looking for, how they're standing straight up. And they're nice size. You want to get a good rule of thumb is for each oyster to be around 3 inches. And basically you want to knock off, it's called culling. You want to knock off the dead oyster shell and also the smaller ones that you don't want. And basically it just looks like something like that.
Oh, so it's
and
just
then
whack, whack.
Basically that's it, and you're left with a nice little cluster that you want, and you take that home to harvest. And the reason that we cull, it's actually extremely important because we want to cultivate this resource, and it is a renewable resource that is out here. So actually by coming out here and harvesting, we're actually helping the species propagate. And by doing that, we're knocking off the smaller ones and taking only the ones that we need to eat. And by knocking off the dead shell, that allows the smaller baby oysters to grow on top of the dead shell. That's how they...
Oh, so they build on top of the dead shells that you drop back down.
Correct. So actually we're cultivating like we cultivate a crop. And if you pick up a cluster that, you know, you look at it and you don't see that you want anything on there, it's just fine just to put it right back down and prop it up, and they'll keep growing just right where they are.
Obviously, there's more out here than just oysters.
Correct. There's one species of crab, but this is the green porcelain crab. That's actually an invasive species.
Invasive in a bad way?
It's more competition for all the local species.
Okay.
But it's not local in origin.
We're going to go up a little bit and look for some more, because the one where we just were, they were nice, but we want a little bit larger. The clusters were a little too small. All the oysters were about the same size. We're looking for some a little bit larger ones. It's just a lot better oysters for harvesting. And when you cull them, you can see that they're going to be a lot larger. As this one right here, when I pick this up, and that's exactly what that's a. Oh, that's a big one.
That's a beautiful oyster. That's probably twice the size of anything we were looking at before. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing quite a number of those. So if I'm wanting these, I see a cluster of these 3 big right here. I want to hold on to those and start down at the bottom and work my way to them. And see, these are all dead right here, so I want to get those off. That one's dead. And that's exactly what I'm left with, is this nice little cluster of these 3 large, and on the backside, some smaller oysters. Right here, right there. They're all over, very numerous, and they start out as little larvae floating around in the water. Hopefully they fall on a proper substrate, as in other oyster shell, and they can start to grow on top of them. And it's really just get yourself some proper boots, you know, a bucket, and you can come out here, a saltwater fishing license. That
Obviously, a pipe is easy.
a pipe.
enough to
There you
come
go.
by.
There you go. And you know, you can even walk out to some of these tidal marshes. And
Well, I think a lot of it is
oysters.
just a culture thing too, because
Exactly.
I didn't grow up on the coast,
Right.
And so this obviously, working for the DNR, I've been out here a lot, but I've never actually done this.
Right. And as far as personally, I come from Alabama inland. So growing up, you know, I would find the Gulf oysters that are a different species than these. And then I came out here, and I had, even though I would buy them in restaurants, I didn't know where they came from or what it was. And to come out here and to explore this and to actually get out into the environment and to be able to kind of get back to a time where you can actually harvest your own food. It's kind of, it's very, very rewarding.
No kidding. So these 3 buckets should be enough?
Yes, for who we have, that should be enough. And now all we got to do is go back and wash them off. You want to rinse them off real well so you don't have a lot of mud in the water when you're roasting them, and light the fire and get them roasted. Start eating.
Rock and roll.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Holly, before we go eat all the delicious oysters we gathered this morning, tell me about the program you're involved with.
Well, it's called the SCORE program, South Carolina Oyster Restoration and Enhancement Program. And what we do is we take recycled oyster shells and we build reefs with them. Like this
these?
here.
Okay.
We take a mesh bag, and ideally the oyster spat, the baby oysters, will land on the shell and they'll grow through the mesh. The mesh actually becomes part of the reef. Like we saw today, they grow up and straight and out of the bag, so some you can't even see the bags anymore.
Okay.
So that's a good success rate for us.
All right. Well, since the year 2000, when we started being supported by the saltwater recreational fishing license, we've recycled close to 75,000 bushels of shell. We've planted about 220,000 bushels of shell. So we're rolling along. Every year we get more and more recycled shell, which is very important to recycle your shell. We provide trailers to large oyster roasts. Say 50 bushels or more, we'll take a trailer out. Also, we have several caterers, especially in the Charleston area, that are participating in the program. We have 20 drop-off sites, so that's 33% about for each source.
So this is an oyster roast. How does it work?
Well, what they do is build a fire and we're using a sheet of 1/4-inch steel, a 4x6-inch sheet for this size oyster roast. That way you can cook several bushels at a time and get a good roaring bed of coals under there, a roaring fire, then knock it down to a bed of coals. And when you do that, you get a good hot surface. And you throw the oysters on, then throw burlap on top, wet burlap, and then, of course, have a water hose standing by and wet them down from time to time. So the steam cooks the oysters instead of just the dry heat. And that way you have a better oyster. A lot of people like them well done. Some people like them not so well done. So you have a mix through the pile of various states of well doneness.
Is this a uniquely low country South Carolina method?
I don't know about uniquely South Carolina, but certainly unique to the coast, I think, in this region. From North Carolina, probably about northern Florida. This is the way traditionally the oyster roast has been done.
Well, we started the day with a beautiful boat ride, went out to the oyster beds, picked up a lot of oysters, came back, we roasted them, and now we're eating. It's been a good day. Now, how do I get into this?